So, how about other questions from here? Yeah.
I have a drum that has baseball bat bearing edges on the top and the bottom, and for the life of me, I just can't get any brightness out of the snare response whatsoever.
Okay. What brand is it?
I don't know. Somebody ripped, I think it's from the 40s or 50s. Somebody ripped the badges off the drum. It's
Okay.
got what looks like a Greshler off, but there's no logo on it. So.
Okay. And you didn't bring it with you, did you?
I meant to, but
Okay.
it's in my game.
It could be a couple of things. If I had the drum here, I could tell better.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about earlier, those baseball bat edges are common on the 40s drums, 50s drums, etc. Those edges combined with, and I don't know what brand, I don't know what the snare bed looks like. So if you've got those rounded edges to start with, and you've got the real kind of funky snare beds, it could be that it's just not going to give you what you want. And sometimes the answer for that would be, the way I would do it would be, if the drum's not a collector piece, you just want to be able to be a player piece, I would say get the bottom bearing edge recut to like a 45. And depending on how, we'd have to look at it, and actually, I could look at it briefly, but the guys who do this at my shop in New York could dial it in better. But it might be that they need to do some work on the bed. If the bed's already deep, probably they can't really build it back up. You know what I mean? But maybe the answer would be sharpen the bottom edges to 45s, and that might help. And then dial it in C. And then if it's still not quite right, then maybe the answer would be to do 45s on the top edges as well. And then that might help it. But probably I'd have to see it. If you bring it sometime, let me look at it and we can try to figure it out.
Okay.
What wires, what kind of snare wires are they?
I have some, it's from a Thomas Star Classic. It's just steel snares.
Okay.
I was actually going to buy a set of snares for a while
Okay.
too. So.
Okay, should be. And the other thing, I didn't mention this, but snare wires. I mean, there's 8 million varieties of snare wires. I just use a normal, maybe 18-strand, pure sound snare wires. They make good stuff. But there's all manner of different types of wires. If the drum's an old vintage drum, some of those drums, like 20s era drums, they came with 12-strand on them. And they were made for that. And the snare beds were cut for that. So sometimes you find, this is actually a funny thing. Guys will try to make the old snares sound better by going out and buying the Gretsch Wide 42, which is like a 42-strand snare. But it doesn't work because the snares, first of all, it's overkill. 42 wires is completely crazy. But they had those 42 wires because the Gretsch drums sounded so bad with normal set of wires that they were desperate to get anything to try to get the snares to sound better. You don't need 42 strands of wire. You just don't. And the snare bed's not cut for it anyway. There is no snare bed that I've ever seen that's cut to accommodate a 42-strand set of snare wires. So just a nice normal set of wires, but on an old vintage drum, 40s, 50s, whatever, it probably needs new wires. If the old ones are shot, they probably are shot.
Yeah.
It's going to make your life a lot easier to put a new set of wires on.
I tried it with a set of wires from a different drum. It currently doesn't have any on it. So.
Yeah.
I mean, recommend like 12 or 14 or.
You know.
Sorry, a little about not looking at it.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, how deep is it? A 5?
5.
I mean, 16-strand. What is that? Is that what's on it now? 16-strand, 20-strand?
I had some 16s on it.
Hey, Dad, could you repeat the question just for the YouTube people?
Yeah, this was a question of a snare with baseball bat edges, top and bottom, and it's a vintage one. You just can't get any snare sound out of it. And
There you go, everybody.
Yeah, that was the issue. Yeah,
You guys want to keep doing a dialogue? Here's the mic.
all right, but that would be.
You are right at the limit of.
Yeah. That would be my thought. Bring it in sometime and we can look at it and try to see if we can dial it in for you. And if not, then it might just be worth it to have the beds cut, something, or have the edges cut.
You can't do that here, can you?
No, we can't. But you know who can do it here? Joe Marquardt. Well, not here, but Joe Marquardt.
He's sitting too.
Oh! Hey, wait, how did you sneak in? I didn't even see you in the dark. That's the guy right there.
So yeah.
You want to talk?
Yeah, no, I didn't see you come in. Yeah, that's it, man. Bring it. Yeah, let Joe take a look at it. Absolutely.
Yeah. We say we check the trueness of the shell too.
Well, there's that too. We didn't even talk about that. Sometimes, roundness, out of round, that's a possibility. Yeah.
That's the other thing with the older shells. That you run into egg shells.
Yeah.
With some of the vintage drums, you might run into a egg shell where it's actually not even a round shell.
Yeah.
Where your Craviatos, I mean, that's
Yeah.
pull them next to a old Radio King.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not all, but some you'll find that they're.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The old Radio Kings, they're great. The 3-point strainer versions with the extension bridges, they're solid shells, they're great, but they weren't all great because when you create a solid shell, unlike plywood, you got several layers, okay? And there's a lot of glue in between, and they're really thin layers. So you can put that shell together. It's very strong, and usually what they'll do is they'll stagger the plies. So all 6 plies don't meet at the same area. Here's the edge of one, here's the edge of another one, it's staggered. They form it, it's a very strong shell. It's not as resonant because you got a lot of glue, so the tuning range isn't as wide and the drum's not as resonant as a solid shell. Solid shell, though, is a different animal. Steam bent, like the Craviatos, one board, steam bent, and there's one scarf joint where it comes together. That shell is always going to want to go like this, okay? So what you have to do is a counter force, and that's the reinforcement rings that are on the top and the bottom that are, it's hard to see, but you've got a ring, a wooden ring inside here on the top and the bottom, and that reinforcement ring is what's there to keep the shell in round and to keep it from wanting to go back the other way. Some of the old Radio Kings, when they were great, but a lot of them did not stay in round really well, even with the reinforcement rings. And sometimes it's just hit or miss. So if you ever want an old Radio King, the answer is don't buy one on eBay or Reverb. Make sure you have it in your hand and play it first, because it may not be round. And if it's not round, it's a pain in the rear end. It's probably never going to sound right? I mean, if it's out of round,
yes.
it's kind of over.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
So, but that's a great point. Yeah, Joe, oh my, I didn't even see you here. Joe's the guy, I refer everybody here that needs work done to go see Joe. Joe Marquardt,
Thank you.
absolutely. That's the way to go.
Thank you, Steve.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah, I recently acquired an old Slingerland Radio King bass drum, 24-inch, that is in really good shape, and it has the original calfskin heads. I'm thinking it's around 1955, and I'm using the calfskin heads because they're in really nice shape, but I know nothing about how to deal with tuning and calfskin heads. Could you give me any hints about calfskin? Some people have told me things about having a light bulb inside of the drum. And
Okay. I laughed because Steven said, "Do you want to talk about calfskin heads?" And I said, well, probably nobody here, with the exception of, maybe 2 people here had ever even tried calfskin heads, but I shouldn't make that general assumption. But that's a really good point.
You want me to get the drum up?
No, it's okay. We're just going to talk. We're just going to talk about it.
I got my snare has them on.
Yeah, we'll just talk about it. Plastic heads weren't invented till like 56, 7, when Remo invented plastic heads. So before that, you had calf. That's it. That's all there was. And calf is really, really sensitive to humidity. Who has used calf heads here? Anybody else? Okay, so a few people. They're really sensitive to humidity. So if it's humid, the heads are going to basically detune, and your 12 is going to sound like an 18-inch floor tom. But if it's middle of winter, the 12 is going to sound like a bongo. It's going to sound tick, tick, tick. So you have to constantly adjust for it. And as I talked about the Gladstone, when Billy Gladstone was coming up the 3 levels at the from sub basement to the top, the drum's out of tune. You got to tune it up with calf heads. They're very sensitive. You'll find in old bass drums from the 20s, calf heads, you'll find them, they got light bulbs in them. The light bulbs are there on purpose. They literally got light bulbs in it and a cord coming out of the drum. They're plugged into the wall because you needed to get the heat to expand those heads, depending on the venue you were in. So with something like the drum that Bill's got, people go, well, I like the sound of calf because calf has this very, very warm, special sound that you can't get from plastic. But the flip side is it's a pain in the rear end. So some of the options that exist are this. Rather than using calf on both sides, put plastic on the bottom, on the resonant sides, use calf on the batter sides, so then at least if you have to tweak it, you only have to tweak the top. You don't have to spend all your time messing around with both. So that's one possibility. The other is the internal heater. That's what it was there for on the bass drums. The problem is, if there is one, if you bought a bass drum that has one, I would have the cord replaced immediately with a 3-prong, because otherwise you'll probably burn the venue down and electrocute yourself. And there's no, that I'm aware of, there's no repro internal heaters. So there might be some kind of weird thing for orchestral guys who use calf on timpani, because there are some guys, the guy who's the principal at Cincinnati, who now is at Chicago, uses calf on timpani, which, God bless him, man, that's got to be the, I don't want any part of that, but I don't know how he makes that work. But there's a really quick calf head story, God's honest truth, from Jeff Hamilton. And Jeff was a big disciple of Art Blakey's, loved Art Blakey, loved Mel Lewis, loved Buddy, all those guys. And Mel was really like a mentor to him. So Jeff told me a couple years ago when he was in New York, we were talking, he said he had a gig once, an outdoor gig, where the Thad Jones Mel Lewis Big Band was playing, he was with a band that was opening. Thad Jones Mel Lewis Big Band was next, and then Buddy's band was the headline. So Jeff says, we're playing at the outdoor venue, and he said, you know, I got my calf heads on my drums. And he said, it's outside and it's the summer. And he said, I'm trying to play, and he said, I'm trying to play with one hand and I'm trying to tune with the other hand. And he said, it was a disaster. And he said, all along, I'm dying. He said, I'm having a fit because Mel's in the wings watching me and Buddy while he's futzing around trying to make the drums sound right. So he leaves. He gets off. They finish the set. It was a disaster. He goes back, kind of like this, and says to Mel, and Mel says, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, Mel, calf like you do." And Mel said, "Jackass, I told you, just on the top." and he's like, and he said, "That's the God's honest truth." He said, "I'm thinking, I'm doing the Mel thing. I got calf on the top and the bottom." He's like, "I just got him on the top. I don't want to mess with that." So, but it's the truth. The calf heads sound wonderful, but you gotta really want it, man. You gotta really want to go the extra mile for it. It's a pain.
Okay. Yeah.
But on that bass drum, I don't know, man. I would put a plastic on the resonant side and then just leave.
Which kind of plastic goes with calf? Any particular, just a regular Remo and Ambassador?
Yeah, or put a. Well, you could put a fiber skin. A little thicker.
Mm-hmm.
I like the Renaissance.
Oh, I
think those are the closest.
That's true. That's true. The Remo Renaissance heads, yeah, they're not really, really popular, but they sound great, and that would probably be a good choice on that resonant side.
Remember the kit that we just did a video of, the Leedy?
Yeah.
That had Renaissance on the top
and calf on the bottom.
I would say that's pretty close to.
Yeah, this was the opposite. I mean,
that's the opposite of what we want.
Yeah, this is the vintage kit that we had, and we just wanted to dial it in more easily, and we left the calf on the bottom on the toms, but normally I wouldn't do that. I'd do it the reverse, but the Renaissance head would probably be a good choice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
What else?
And let's do another one.
See how we're doing here.
Get the microphone. Thank you. Okay, so. Can I ask a question? Sure.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, here's the microphone for those who couldn't make it. There you go.
I'm sorry I'm late. The GPS was taking me to New York City.
Oh, yo! That's a long way. It's a long trip.
I haven't been living in Chicago very long, so I just put in Steve Maxwell's custom
Oh,
drum.
and they came up Manhattan. Yeah,
And
it's about a 1,200-mile
as I'm
drive.
entering Indiana, I thought I'd better recheck.
I see why I didn't get lost because I came from there.
Two things. One, I love the sound you got out of that drum right now.
Oh, thank you.
That's
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
David Herbert is a friend of mine.
Oh, yeah, I know
He's the
Dave.
timpanist with the Chicago Symphony. He does play calf heads.
I know.
He's one of the very few. Now, he came from San Francisco, his last job,
Yep.
where I just came from myself.
Yep.
And if you haven't heard David Herbert play with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, do yourself a favor and hear really one of the masters of the instrument
Yeah.
play calf heads. And, he's constantly tuning them, constantly working at it.
Yeah.
But the sound is incredible.
That's a lot. That's a lot of work. It's great. And the fellow that was playing in Cincinnati, young guy who was playing in Cincinnati, was the same way. He used calf, and again, it's incredible. But it's just you got to be committed. You seriously got to be committed to that. That's a lot. That's a lot of work. But it's great sound.
All right.
What else we got?
I saw a master class that you did at like the PAS Illinois chapter, like maybe like 3 years ago. It was really cool. So let's see here.
Yo, hang on.
Oh, cool. Didn't see it. Sorry about the cable, everybody. Don't have a wireless one. I'll get it for next time.
Steve, after you get your snare drum tuned up like how you demonstrated for us, and
Yep.
you've got it dialed in the way you want it to sound as a snare,
Yeah.
how do you reconcile how it is at that moment with how it then might be once you want to go just work with it, snares off with the toms on the kit for a while? Because there are times when I feel that I'm liking the snare drum sound I've got,
Yeah.
but then, we do a Afro-Cuban thing or whatever, something I want no snares for an entire song, and I'm thinking, this thing sounds like it's on a different drum set than my toms.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Let's see how this one is. Kind of works. I think. Wait, I know how you tune, so I know you're going to have the pleasing intervals there. I don't know. I mean, I think generally, if you tune it the way I've tuned it here, I don't normally find too much of an issue with the snare drum not blending with the rest of the kit. So I haven't experienced much difficulty there. Is it in your situation? Are you thinking it along the lines of the snare just sounds? Does it not blend melodically with the rest? Is it too?
Yeah, I think it's a resonance issue more than anything else. But then there's pitch too. Now
Yeah.
I most of the time I'm using it's a 4.5
Right.
snare, and it's a 10-inch mounted tom.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the closeness in pitch
Yeah. Well,
gets tricky
You know,
for me
that's
sometimes.
true, and because it's the Craviato. Yeah. So the 10. Yeah, that's a little harder to deal with. I don't use a 10 a lot. 10-inch tom, it's a funny thing. 10-inch tom is, I think, I call it like a limited utility drum. Even with a Craviato, you've got a really wide tuning range, so you can bring that thing down to sound like a 12. But a 10 is going to resonate in a certain spot, and there's not all that many applications for a 10. So with a kit like this, if you're playing with the snares off, it's going to kind of be good. And my snare is kind of tight. If you think about it, if this snare was a 10-inch tom, it would be tuned the same way. You know what I mean? So the snare, if you tune like I do, and you tune probably close to this, that the snare is going to probably sound like the 10. So in that Latin kind of thing, it's probably not going to be enough. It's going to be like two 10s. You know, it's going to be fine with the 12, but it's not going to be so good with the 10 because the pitch is going to be too close to the snare. That's all I can think of. And you're playing the 4.5, and you're probably, I don't know, you're probably around here, right?
I suppose, yeah.
Probably. Yeah, so that's probably the issue. It'll blend fine with the 12, not so much with the 10. And you have time in between tunes to tune the 10, to tune it down. Yeah, that would be a little tricky.
So were you saying that they were too close together?
Sometimes I feel that that snare, when I get it to a pitch where I feel I've got a good pitch differentiation between that and the 10-inch, is on the verge of being choked up too much.
Yeah.
So then the snare's too high at that point.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
try taking the 10 down. I mean, it is a Craviato. What kind
But
of
then he'd have to take the floor down as well.
Right. So
Because
mess up the whole-
yeah, the whole mix.
And I'm convinced that 10, and maybe it's all toms, but I think that one in particular, of the ones I own, because I have a 12, but I
Right.
tend to always use that 10.
The 10.
And the floor tom's a 13.
The 13.
It's a
Yeah,
real
you
odd
got the
duck.
10, 13.
I think that only has one sweet spot, and that's it. That 10-inch,
Yeah.
in other words.
Maybe we should make you an 11. No, wait, seriously, we actually,
This one goes to 11.
yeah, we did that once. At Craviato, we did that because even though with the Craviato 10 you have a wide tuning rate, I still don't personally like a 10 that much. We used to use it with these little, call them microbop kits. So it'd be like a 7.5 by 10, a 13-13, and maybe like a 14 by 16 bass drum. So really small, but because it's Craviato solid shells are nicely resonant. But the 10 always still kind of niggled at me as I just don't like the 10. So we actually started to make 11s. And you can get 11-inch heads. If you're traveling on the road and you go to a drum shop, you're not going to find them. But if you're, like us playing around, you get them from Remo. They got them. And 11, 13, 16, I liked, and I still like better. Now, not a lot of people want to buy the 11, but if you want that little microbop kit, the 11 I think works better than the 10.
If you're buying, I'll use it, sure.
Yeah. But that is a factor. 10s are kind of an interesting animal. Peter Erskine had a story, and I got him back once on this. Peter used to always talk about how he said real drummer guys and gals don't play 10s. Like real men don't play 10s or something like that. And so that was always, he used to always talk about that. And then when he went over to Tama to play this on their Star Series kit, I called him up. I said, "Hey, what's up with the 10-inch tom?" Because he has the 10, 12, 14, 16, and the 20, and he just started laughing. He said, but I guess he's gotten over the 10-inch tom thing. So what else we got? Question?
Any more questions out in this area while we got the microphone over there? I got a couple more here from the...
Real quick, the fiber skin. I've seen them videos of fiber skin. Danny Seraphin from Chicago uses them. What's your take on the fiber skin heads?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. The idea with fiber skin was to kind of get it along the lines of something that kind of give you a feel of calf or the sound, some sort of a blend. So it's a little bit closer to a calf sound. I don't think it really does that. They look cool because they got that kind of cool textured look, so they look really cool. And on a lot of kits, on the Craviato kits, we often use a fiber skin resonant head. I played on the fiber skin heads, and what I think is, I do not have the scientific background for it. They feel, and when I say feel, they play too thick for me. I don't like the way they play for, again, I'm fussy about this kind of edge stuff. And I think the fiber skin, the thicker the head, the less you're going to get at those low volumes because the head's thick. And I think the fiber skin heads sound great on toms and bass drums. And again, when you want that mid to low tuning thing, medium to low tuning, that that fat kind of a sound. I think they sound good for that. On the snares, they sound good along those same lines. It's just, for me, I'm too old, I guess. I'm just like a coated ambassador guy. It's like it works for me.
I prefer that on snare drums myself, and I'm an Evans hydraulic man till the day I die. But lately, it's just on the toms I use them.
Yeah.
I use the hydraulics just on the toms, because for the bass drum, I started using a double kick, single bass, double kick.
Mm-hmm.
And you gotta have the new fancy schmancy stuff to get the articulation when you're trying
Yeah.
to play a double bass riff.
Yeah, when you're trying to do with a double pedal on one bass drum.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's a different animal too. I actually double bass. I like the double bass concept. I don't use it much, but I like it very much. But I don't like the double pedal on a single bass drum because I prefer. If you think about the Louis Bellson style, I prefer each of those strokes to have the full resonance of the individual drum, rather than the two strokes together on one drum. But it's great for certain things, for some funk and certain fusion kinds of stuff. It's fine, but I like it a little different. I like the two wide open 22s or 24s.
That'll always be my preference, but it's just that the times, they are changing.
Well,
We'll leave it
and
at
also
that.
too, if you can't fit two 22s on a stage, right?
Right.
I mean, Bill, you play in the big band. How many, with the big band, you got room for two 22s? I don't think so.
I brought two 24s.
Oh.
It was such a pain in the butt.
Yeah, pain in the butt.
For me to get in and out of the room, that
Right.
was the last time I ever did it.
And you got to have room on the stage. It's a big spread.
Yeah, like I said, I have two 22s, and on most of these stages, like the other guy was saying, it's just so small anymore that even with two 22s or two 18s, it's
Yeah. I mean, I always like to play a bop kit. I'll play a 12, 14, 18 snare. I'm a happy guy. My personal favorite kits, 13, 216s, and a 22 or a 24, a la Buddy. And I've got kits back there, my own personal kits. But again, 216s, again, on stages, you don't have the room. You've been there. You want to bring it, but it's going to be on the floor somewhere.
Just used it as a towel.
Well, I know. Buddy hardly ever played it. But I have this thing about having the 216s right there. I just want them there. I just like it. And but that it's just do what you can.
And with the snare, I went back to using coated snares because I got into a situation where I was using brushes, and you gotta kind of need that coating.
Oh, you need the coating, yeah, for sure. Yeah, on that. Anything else?
Did you have a question? I just want to get the cord untangled.
Yeah, like I said, yeah.
Do we have anything else on your list, Stephen?
Haven't gone wireless yet, but
Yeah, we'll get a wireless.
yeah.
Anything on your list?
For sure. So, let's see. Which one of these is the best? Somebody just asked about tuning for big band. Just any suggestions?
Oh,
Just in general, just for big band, kind of like Buddy Rich and Louis Bellson and all those guys.
well,
What do you
it's
recommend?
an interesting thing. It isn't so much, and Bill knows this. It isn't so much tuning for big band. Big band, it's kind of like, okay, I'll talk about it from the perspective of not just drums but cymbals too. Okay, my favorite cymbals in the whole world are probably Roberto Spizzicino's, handmade in Italy, sick beyond belief. The stuff is insane, and it's a jazz player's cymbal. It's got a lot of wash, colors, okay, and they're thin. And I take those out any day like this. We're going to go play the big band gig. I'm going to take those cymbals because nobody's going to hear them. Because in the big band gig, you need the ability for that ride cymbal to be heard by everybody because it's helping to hold the band together. The hi-hats have to be thick enough so that the chick on 2 and 4, everybody's grounded by it. When I play big band, I feather the bass drum, which just simply means it's not none of that crap, but it's a pulse. It's barely there. Okay? So for big band, you got you got to hold the band together. You got to project. You generally aren't going to do that gig with a 12, 14, 18. You could, but you're probably not going to do that. Harold Jones, who was Basie's favorite drummer, he played with Basie, and he said, you know, before Basie I was using an 18, but you don't use an 18 in the Basie band, you know? You use a 22 or a 24. Sonny Payne played a 24. Harold's kit is in my museum room there, 13, 16, 24, stop sign badge, walnut, Gretsch. It's a 24. But that 24, you feather the drum. You still tune the drums like you tune these drums. What's the sweet spot? Where's the pleasing interval for them? But you've got bigger drums because you need bigger drums because the drums got to fit the gig, just like the cymbals got to fit the gig. You don't bring the spiz to the big band gig. You just don't. You know, Buddy's hats were like 850 over 1050, gram weight wise. It's nice because it gets that nice chick and it still has enough wash and stick definition. The 20 would give you the right amount of stick definition. They got to hear that beat, man. If you start getting too much wash and they can't hear it, it's over. You can't hold them together, right? So I don't tune it any differently. It's just a question of the right tools for the gig. I don't bring the bebop kit and the Spizzacinos to the 18-piece big band gig. By the same token, you don't bring the double 24 Louis Belson kit to the piano trio gig. Now, Louis did, I know. But Louis did with Oscar Peterson. Louis did, but it was Louis, you know, and he played that kit with such subtlety and beauty. It was like, it's fine. But it's just the right tools for the gig, you know. The guitar guys, I mean, you know, you're playing an acoustic thing, you're not going to necessarily bring you wouldn't necessarily bring the Strat, you know. You bring the ES-175 or you know, it's got to kind of fit the venue. Some guys are going to alter it that way. That's what I would do. There was a guy in New York who's a friend of mine, and he was very, very much of the mind that these are the cymbals I play and that's it. So he would show up for big band gigs with like these really thin hi-hats, like 700 over 750 and like an 1800 or 1700 gram 20, and it was a nightmare. But he wouldn't bring anything. Well, these are my cymbals. This is what I play. It's like, you ain't going to get hired for this anymore. It just doesn't work, you know. So it's a little different. It's like with snare drums. I have particular favorite ones, but if it was a certain kind of a gig, I'd bring maybe this kit instead of that kit, or at the very least, I'd vary the snare drum. And when you think about tuning, one last thing I want to say, and then we'll talk and we can break up and just talk individually. But when I tell people about purchasing stuff, it's a real simple thing. There are we spend a lot of time talking about tuning the snare drum more than anything else, because there are two things that define your sound: the ride cymbal and the snare drum. All the rest, I don't care what it is. I don't care if the toms and bass drum were made in Taiwan in 1960. I can figure out a way to make them sound good enough to get through the gig. A crap ride cymbal is a crap ride cymbal. You can't fix it. And if you can't tune your snare drum and that's where your sound comes from, you ain't going to get hired again. How often during the gig, if that bass drum holds down the feathering and the oomph is there when you need it, how many times do you use the toms? Do you really need to use the toms? But you use that ride cymbal the whole night, you use that snare drum the whole night, and if they're not good, you ain't getting hired. So spend good money on buy a great ride cymbal, spend what you need to. It doesn't mean you have to spend a fortune. You can spend $350 and buy an A Zildjian from the 60s used that'll work for the rest of your life. You don't have to buy a $2,000 Spizzacino. Get a good snare drum. Doesn't have to be a $1,000 one, $2,000, doesn't matter, but get a good snare drum, learn how to tune it. Good ride cymbal, good snare drum, get you through most of the gigs. Bill, right? Big band gig, if you show up, you got your snare, you got your cymbals, it almost doesn't matter what else is there. You can make it work.
Yeah, and I tend to never play with less than a 22 bass drum.
Right.
Yeah, I have a lot of 20s, I have 18s, I never bring them to the gig.
Yeah.
I save those drums for when I'm playing a trio. So.
Right. And the whole part of the right tools for the job, also, you don't want to make yourself work any harder than you have to. You know, you bring an 18 to the big band gig, you're going to have a hell of a time that night. It ain't gonna be easy. The 22 is going to be right there.
That said, what I've noticed is I never use like deep snare drums because I like to tune high like you
Right.
do, and that crack
And it cuts.
cuts.
Right, it has to cut. And it's the same thing, it's with the cymbal. The ride has to be, you don't want it so heavy. As much as I loved Louis to the end of the days, toward the end, Louis had a ride cymbal that sounded like he was playing on an anvil. It was the worst thing in the world. You don't need that. Or you don't need, like, if you're playing in a stadium and heavy metal bands, yeah, the ride cymbals all sound like this. Ding, 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 because it's just trying to cut through. But you need the stick definition there. And that snare drum, yeah, it needs to cut. And it's gonna, big band's a different animal, you know? You got a rock, you're playing a blues gig, you want an 8x14 tune kind of loose because you want that low sound. The big band, you want that crack to kick in the fills for the, to set up the hits for the trumpet section or whoever else. You want that snare to be there. That's why I like the Dyna, the way I have the Dyna tuned, you know. You know, it's there. You're not going to miss that. It's going to cut right through. Like I told somebody before, it's just like the piccolo in the orchestra, you know? You can always hear it. It's only that big, and it's acoustic, and it's always there. You can always hear it. So, you know, it's picking the right tools for the gig is just as important as you got to understand how to tune the instrument in the first place. And then it's a question of picking the right tools for the gig, because this one size does not always fit. You've got to do different things. Anything else?
All right. I mean, yeah, we're good on the questions. Oh, one more.
I just want to make a statement about the big band drums. I tend to agree with you about the drums, the size of the drums. But I had the occasion, Clayton Cameron invited me to hear him play with Count Basie. It was about a year and a half ago at Yoshi's in Oakland. And Clayton is only about 5'4".
Yeah, he's a little guy.
Yeah, and he was playing smaller drums, and they sounded excellent.
Yep.
But he had tuned them down quite a bit.
Yep.
And he said, "Pete, I need to see over the top of the drums."
Yeah. That's true. That's true. You know, that is true. I mean, there's guys, I know guys the opposite way. There are guys that won't buy a kit with an 18 because they're like 6'5", and they feel like, you know, it's like it's a midget kit, you know, so they don't care. They want a bigger kit. But yeah, you're right. I mean, some guys are kind of lost. Sonny Payne wasn't a very big guy in terms of height, but he played that 24. He had a 24 with Basie. Clayton's a great player.
Oh, he was great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jeff Hamilton drives a big band with the 12, 14, 18, and he makes it work. But Jeff's remarkable, and that's his Remo kit. And that Remo kit is a Acousticon kit, so it's a blend. It's not a pure wood or anything else. They do. They actually sound great. Yeah. They are nice drums. Anything else?
I think we're good on these questions.
All right.
So
then, thank you. And the jam session at 8 o'clock is going to be killing.
yeah,
so
for the jam
if you can stay for that, you got to stay. Joel Spencer will be here. Larry Gray, Jeremy Kahn will be phenomenal. Plus, we'll have everybody sit in and play.
To sit in if they would like.
Absolutely,
Depending
absolutely.
on how many people we have, we might keep it to 2 tunes this time each or something like that.
We'll figure it out as we go. And then between now and then, I'm here. So just come up, ask questions. If you brought a drum, you want me to look at it, we'll do it. Okay?
Yeah, thanks so
All right.
much.
Thank you. Big fun. All right.
Hey, Steve, great to meet you. I'm Pete Meganini.
Oh, hey, Pete. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm late.
Oh, man. I'm sorry.
You know, you sound really good.
Thank you.
Same generation.
You know, it's a funny thing because I feel like but everything's still